on this one, but that's tech, right? Like Martin mentioned, if you could please, pollev.com/MartinNothnagle703. We've got a few polls throughout this presentation here, so we'd love for you to join it, make it a little more interactive. I see a few folks have already put in where they're coming from, and it's also starting to populate up. So pretty cool to see the reach across most of North America and Europe. And is that Madagascar I see? That's fantastic. All right, we'll circle back on that. But that was cool to see where everyone's from. But welcome everybody to the WinAdmin's AMA and Servicing Profiles H1 update. This is where the Ranger team here is going to let you know who we are, what we do, and give you an update on all of the tools and features that our team has been busy working on and building, and as well as how they work, and of course, get your questions answered, all that good stuff. So looking at the introductions, this is the Ranger team, starting left to right. We've got Paul Bowden, who's our Mac expert. You might have seen him out on Mac Admins. He's very, very popular and famous there. And then on the Windows side, we have Martin, Matt, Bob, and myself, Eric. We are the Win32 Office Rangers. And we work day to day with customers to kind of figure out where the gaps are in our products, what's making your life tough. And then we help build out the best solutions for it and get them, debug them and get them installed in customer environments, and then help, improve on them as well. We're also pretty social, so connect with us on LinkedIn. We're also on Tech Community. We have our own YouTube channel. We are on the WinAdmins Discord, of course, and then we are also live on Reddit. So you can reach us there. Love to keep in touch with you guys and let us know how we're doing and how our products are doing. Also, this is an AMA, and so feel free to please use the Q&A. There might not be a Q&A for this one, so feel free to just throw your questions in chat, or obviously come off mute. We'd love to keep this, as informal as possible and just get your questions answered. So with that, let's start off with a couple of polls here using that same link. First question, which tools do you use for managing Microsoft 365 apps or the Office Pro Plus suite to manage your updates today?
I'm wondering if the Endpoint Manager can beat Config Manager. It looked like for a short amount of time, but Config Manager seems to be still in the lead.
Yeah, it looks like it might nip out here. Fernando, the question there, there's a URL at the top. It's pollev.com, and someone threw it in the chat there as well.
I'm on Intune. I believe in you.
Thanks. Okay, awesome. And second question we have here, I've got questions about Microsoft 365 Apps blank. What's your biggest concern as far as activation, servicing, update management, month-over-month stuff, upgrading off of legacy MSI bits, just deploying the apps, or accessibility and features like that? Okay, so most of you are off of old MSI 2010, 2013, 2016 type bits. So good to see that one came in last. Brian says no, not off the old bits yet. 20K devices. Okay. Well, hopefully as we walk through this, this will help make it easy and simple for you to migrate over at a push of a button. So the things that we're going to talk about today is we're going to introduce you all to servicing profiles, what it is, how it works, comparison and contrast to what MEM can provide and what MECM can provide, as well as provide updates on all the new features we've released in the first half of our fiscal year, towards the just getting started there. And of course, your questions on all of this stuff. And just to kind of set the table properly, what we don't cover and can't cover is Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, Microsoft 365 Apps licensing, like how to purchase, what your entitlements are there, that's the cost type things. And then in-app features like why is my Excel calendaring doing this or that, or why is my Excel pivot table doing this or that. This is just completely around the managing, migration, and deployment of the app suite itself. So just kind of set the table as to what we cover and don't cover. And let's go ahead and get started. So I will pass it off to Martin here, and he's going to intro to you what is servicing profiles.
Thanks, Eric. So when you're active on the WinAdmin server, or especially the Microsoft 365 Apps channel, you might have heard of servicing profiles already. So I will try to keep it as brief as possible and try to get my camera working so that you can actually see me. Let's see if this comes through. So servicing profiles. Everything we are talking about is related to the Microsoft 365 apps. So everything in this talk track, in this AMA session, will also be only applicable to the Microsoft 365 apps. And the servicing profile especially is dealing with managing updates. And the servicing profile is a service or a feature, however you put it, which is available in your tenant, more precisely in the Apps Admin Center. So when you go to config.office.com, there's a node in the navigation called Servicing Profiles, where you as an admin can set some rules, like which devices should be in scope and how long do I want my users to have time between an update hits the machine and the Microsoft 365 apps are enforcing the actual app update. And then the tenant service is executing on these rules. And you as an admin can see what's going on, how many machines are targeted, what is the current status of all the machines. And one of the benefits of moving this to be a tenant feature is that we can deploy updates faster with this. We have a shorter technology stack. It's directly the Microsoft 365 apps talking to this backend service and getting their instructions, what I'm supposed to do, to which version should I update, or if the admin is triggering rollback, to which version should I downgrade exactly. So that's what enables us to deploy updates faster and broader, because we are working on a tenant level. It no longer matters how the device is managed or into which Active Directory or Azure Active Directory directory this device is joined into. So it's not important. If your devices are all Novell NetWare still, at least the Microsoft 365 apps you can now push to your devices. And it is tailored to the Microsoft 365 apps. We will see this on the next screen. When we look at Config Manager and Endpoint Manager, these are kind of Swiss Army knife tools. They can do basically everything. But when we look at the Microsoft 365 apps, there are some special behaviors, like the different versions we have, the channels we have, the builds we have, 32, 64-bit, different add-ins, and so on and so on. And Servicing Profiles is specifically built for this product, so it understands kind of all the nuances of this product and can take advantage of this, like for example with rollback. But for a comparison between Config Manager, Endpoint Manager, and Servicing Profile, I kick it over to Bob, and he will show you how Servicing Profile is a good addition to a Config Manager or Endpoint Manager setup.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So something we get questions about a lot, because obviously we have multiple tools in the toolkit for you to manage M365 apps. It's like, well, which one do I use? What covers what? And we don't have this in our docs at this point, although we have shared this a couple times and are getting really positive feedback. So maybe we'll have it in a blog post here or something soon. But just kind of running down the list, right? So config manager, endpoint manager, servicing profiles. First and foremost, config manager and endpoint manager, they're full device management solutions. So for obvious context, they're going to have much more capability at the root because they're managing at the device layer, so they can deploy apps, they can provision devices, so on and so forth. Servicing profiles sits at the app layer, so think of it like, as long as that app's in session, we're doing things to the app. Beyond that, we're not taking inventory on other stuff on the device. We're not managing other components on the device. It's really Office. So all three do update servicing. We put a note next to Endpoint Manager there because you'll find this common with Endpoint Manager if you're using it, or Intune for those that prefer that name. It doesn't have any native M365 app manageability. You're basically just using kind of like config profiles with administrative templates or the new servicing component there to set the update policies, right? So reporting is missing. The flow and confirmation of the policies are there is about all you're going to get. From a channel management perspective, config manager, you can go from slower channels to faster channels easily. If you need to go down to a slower channel, not so much. There's things you have to take into account. Endpoint manager, again, you're doing it with policies. Servicing profiles works great, does the channel switch for you, but as many of you know that are using servicing profiles, it's monthly enterprise only at this point, and it only goes to monthly enterprise. You can't like offboard and it automatically flips you back to a slower channel. So they all have their own caveats. Wave customization, config manager, you got your collections and your assignments. Endpoint manager, again, policies and Azure AD groups. And then servicing profiles, we've released wave customization now. So you can go in there, you can use the default waves that are there if you don't, if you're good with the flow that's happening, or you can go in there and set groups, set waves, set delays between your waves, and so on. Office CDN, endpoint manager and servicing profiles that are 100% CDN. So devices managed in those solutions are going to be going to the Office CDN to get content. Config manager, you can do, obviously it's on-prem, or there's a checkbox where you can say like update to Microsoft, download updates from Microsoft. The caveat there is if you're using that and you still have Office Management COM, you're going to lose out on capabilities like delivery optimization and connected cache, which are something you very likely are going to want to have if you're sending your devices up to Microsoft to get update content. So I'd apologize if you're hearing lawn equipment in the background, but on-prem content support, again, config managers there, nothing, no options for endpoint manager. Servicing profiles. Reporting, they all have an option. Endpoint manager, you can get there. It's got an X with a note. Basically, you've got to build out a log analytics workspace today. You got to do log collection, data collection from your devices all on your own. There's no built-in update reporting that's really usable to track compliance over a period of time. But obviously, servicing profiles, you'd be using inventory or security update status. Then a rollback capability, servicing profiles, one-click button. You go in there, add your group or your devices, and you're off to the races. Config manager and endpoint manager, you're basically going to package the ODT and send that out to rollback devices. Skip, again, same kind of context. Config manager, you can pause your deployment. Microsoft Endpoint Manager, you can remove your assignment. Servicing profiles, skip's built into rollback. So when you roll back a device, it's automatically going to skip the release it just rolled back off of. So again, all kind of have it in their own flavor. And then pause, config manager, you can pause your deployment indefinitely. You can not deploy anymore. And servicing profiles, you can hit the pause button and that will stop update intents from going out. Endpoint manager, no real pause. I mean, in theory, you could delete the assignment. Caveat there, you lose your deployment history and compliance, and they would all fall off whatever the policy is. So they might go back and revert to something undesired, right? So, and then total cost of ownership. We like to just sum it up, right? Config manager, there's infrastructure. It's a much more complex beast beyond M365 apps. So highest cost of ownership. Endpoint manager, at least your cloud, but still you're a device management solution. There's a lot of other things going on. probably a lot of other security groups in your company and teams that you're working with to meet compliance. Servicing profiles, lowest total cost of ownership, because once you're in the portal, you can just zero in on the M365 app piece. And then the enclaves are important because we are working with a lot of government customers now, so we try to highlight config manager across the board, all enclaves, and essentially it's an on-prem solution, right? So you can put it in an air-gapped network if you needed to. Endpoint manager, it covers GCC and GCC high, and the admin templates you need to update Office can be used in those enclaves. Servicing profiles is currently commercial only, but we are working. I mean, we know we need feature parity here in the GCC tenants, and we're working to get there. It's on the list, the infinite roadmap that we have. So hopefully this is helpful. And if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. With that, I will pass it on to the next guy in charge. Is that Martin or Matt?
That's me.
All right, cool.
Once I find the unmute button. So because we had some hiccups at the beginning and we started late, I will switch from the slides into the actual demo environment so I can walk you through the updates we released in the first half of 2022. I will try to keep it short so we have enough time for Q&A. So presentation goes away for a second, and then I have to find my demo environment, and then we're back in the swing. There we go. So I've logged into the Apps Admin Center, and I will touch on the new features, but at the same time give you kind of a quick tour around the house. It's pretty straightforward. So when we look at servicing and then monthly enterprise means all devices which are in scope, the outcome is a current monthly enterprise install. And the rules I mentioned before is on the settings tab where you can create your selection criteria. And you can select which device should be in scope. So for example, I want to target all my devices, and then I want to target devices which are maybe not only on monthly enterprise, but also on a current channel preview, and beta channel in my example. So all these devices are then targeted and will be moved to the latest monthly enterprise channel version. At the same time, when we talk about config manager and endpoint manager, these devices will get the instructions. When it comes to Microsoft 365 app updates, stop listening to your config manager, stop listening to your endpoint manager, because there's a tenant level servicing profile which will take control. So you don't have to manually offboard these devices. Servicing profiles automatically basically offboarding them. But everything else on a device is as before. So Windows updates, Edge updates, and so on. If they are coming from config manager, they will continue to do. So one smaller change we did is disk space. That's maybe a minor option, but the lower limit before was 5 gig, and now you can dial down to 0 gig, which is basically saying every time, or no matter how much disk space is left, at least try to apply the update. And we can also now, that was one small addition. We have also added the capability to certainly exclude devices. So imagine I already have an Azure AD group here. We can use Azure AD groups which can contain users or can contain devices to make sure that these devices are always excluded from the scope of my servicing profile. So for example, I might have some terminal servers in my environment. So I put all my terminal servers in an Azure AD group and then add them here as an exclusion. This will make sure whatever I select here, the servicing profile will never try to update my RDS servers, because maybe there's a separate process. I can also use users. So maybe I want to kind of handhold my CIO when his device is getting the updates. So I can also add a few users here, and then the users are always excluded from the servicing profiles, even if they match the remaining selection criteria. And when I save this, the servicing profile will start calculating which devices are in scope, and then we'll start updating them. Once the devices are online, they will receive the updates. If I want to influence the order, I can set up rollout waves, or wave customization. That's maybe the biggest or most requested feature we released in the first half. So instead of the servicing profile creating by default, it creates 4 random waves, 1 wave per day after Patch Tuesday. Instead of having this random order, I can use, again, Azure AD groups, which can contain devices or can contain users or both, and assign them to specific waves and say wave number 1, that's this group going first. Maybe I hard-coded a few devices in there, which is kind of my test device and a test device of my buddy over there. And I can specify a second wave. Maybe that's an Azure AD group with all the people from IT department, so it has user profiles in. Maybe this Azure AD group is not even managed by myself. Maybe it's an HR system, which is kind of adding, removing users to this group, determining who is inside IT, outside IT. But I could, of course, leverage this information and just specify the user, and then specify between my waves, there should be 4 days. Day number 1, wave 1 rolls, then day number 5, wave 2 starts, day number 9, wave 3, so basically all remaining devices will go. And then I hit save, and that's basically it. That's everything you have to do. Then the service in the backend will start assigning the waves to the different devices. So we can see this in the overview, who is on wave 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I think that's the configuration before I start the demo. So this should refresh in a few minutes and show me the different waves. So these are the 3 features we released, or major features we released in the first half of 2022. You can now specifically exclude devices. You can target more devices by going lower with your disk space, and you can create custom rollout waves. The one I forgot, a rollback. We released rollback before, but now I can also use groups. So I can also specify an Azure AD group and select this. And all these 3 objects, in my case, these are devices, should go to the previous version of Mac from the previous months. And then I can hit rollback, and these devices will start to downgrade automatically to the previous release in case something came up with the 2206 release. Something like this might have happened. And then you can roll back devices, and with the next release, they will automatically snap back and update then to the next release of the monthly enterprise channel. All right, so much for the quick demo and the content we wanted to definitely cover in terms of giving you a heads up. What is servicing profile? How does it compare? What are the new features? So I will take a look at the chat now and see what we have on open questions there, or just unmute yourself and state your question live in the audience. I'm also looking over to Eric, Bob, Matt. Have you seen something in the chat you want to kind of call out or elaborate a bit more on?
Yeah, I think we're filling a lot of the questions. There's some Mac love in there, Paul. Can servicing profiles do? We need it for OS X. Yeah, that was on the very early design spec or like topics when I joined the team. But for now, I think it's been very much has not been at the top. I mean, there's just our laundry list of items just for our Win32 devices has gotten so extensive. But yeah, I think most of these questions are pretty straightforward. We've been trying to answer them in chat. I would say if anybody has something they want to come off mute or any current stuff they want to.
I think a big one it's been asked not in the same context each time, but around profiles or all up M365 Apps Admin Center config.office.com. From a device perspective or an Office perspective, it is the M365 Apps for Enterprise SKU that will roll up to that, not the 2021 LTSC versions. And I think, Chris, you had one on devices with groups and gotchas around the architecture, like kind of the setup of the environment. As far as I'm aware, I've been leaning into our Gov space for quite a while lately, so I haven't done a lot with this admin center part of it. But Bob or Martin or Eric, if you want to give me air cover on it, I'm pretty sure the only gotcha is around Azure AD registered for the groups. If you're going to use group filtering for it, is that still the case, Bob?
Yeah, you can use, so to make your life easy, if you're ready to just go with it, target a group with user objects. You'll get everything under the sun, because we're not going to be worried about the domain relationship with the device or anything like that. But if you have select devices you need to target, you're doing like a start small approach where you're just piloting maybe 100 devices or something, then in that case, you do want a group that's got device objects. And in that scenario, if you're targeting a group with devices, the device needs to be either Azure AD joined or hybrid Azure AD joined for us to identify the proper device based on the information we have in inventory. So
thanks, Bob.
Yeah. I'll just directly respond. So Stephanie, regarding the question about ETA of completion, because we always talk about a roadmap. I think it's constantly evolving, and our fiscal year started in July, and we're like looking over the priorities for the manageability team that's building these capabilities. We got a bunch of great stuff out at the end of the year. Some of the really big ones I've seen on the list are feature parity with our GCC environments, the addition of current channel and semi-annual enterprise channel support, and then just general scaling and then just some design things like making sure we're handling out of band update management and stuff like that to the best of our ability. So I don't know if anyone else. I was going to try and pull a slide that we might have on roadmap, but those are the big ones that I know of at this stage. Right.
I don't have anything to add, but I would like to pick two questions from the chat. So one question was, is there a separate cost for servicing profiles? No. As long as or all the devices which are running a Microsoft 365 app SKU, so could be apps for enterprise, could be apps for business, and which enables them to register into the inventory, can also be targeted by the servicing profile, and there are no additional costs. I also in the chat saw a question which is not related to servicing profiles, so please keep all the questions which are not related to servicing profiles coming as well. This should not be a servicing profile only show here. There's one question regarding deploying the Microsoft 365 app, and this environment has a mix of E3 and apps for business licenses. And if there are two XMLs needed with the two different product IDs, or is one sufficient? My peers can jump in if they want to, but from as far as I recall correctly, we do an automatic license transition if we detect that the user has, for example, a business installation, but is actually entitled for an enterprise feature set, Plus is the one who's activating this Office installation. So basically, the first one who logs into a fresh install. If I recall correctly, this should automatically, with the next reboot of the machine or something like this, do a transition from being an apps for business install to being an apps for enterprise install. This feature certainly, this automatic transitions, this feature certainly exists in the consumer space. For the commercial space, I'm pretty sure it's there, but I would test. Start with business retail and then test if it goes up to Pro Plus retail if an E3 user is signing in. It might not update in the apps list, but the features should automatically adjust themselves. So worth testing, should work, but I haven't played around with this in a while, so I'm not 100% sure. Bob, Eric, Matt, anything else which is maybe not servicing profile related that we can jump on?
Yeah, there's one in there right now from John. If in regards to assigning a device license to hybrid Azure AD join devices, what's the best way to make sure that device license gets immediately after its enrollment? So if you're speaking towards the device-based subscription license, if that's the route that you're going, you assign it in the M365 admin center to the device. And then once anybody opens up Office on that device, there's a group policy as well for device-based subscription that would have to be laid down either in the XML or a policy could come down as well. But once that gets lit up, that tells Office that it's device-based activation, and it will hit OLS and activate that device, and then you should be good to go. And one cool thing about that device-based subscription is we don't care who signs in. It could be like an F3 user, F1 user. It could be like a walk-up kiosk. It really opens up the ability to have that device be kind of like a kiosk.
Cool. Should we jump back
Scrolling the list.
Yeah, I see another one in here about exporting like a CSV for policy management. I know we talked about doing like an RSOP for cloud policies at one point, but I don't think any further work's been done on that unless the team knows something I don't. But the current settings for your security team, if you're using the cloud-based policy services that were in the admin center, right now the best thing to do would be to either give your security team access or give them like a reader role to be able to view what you have set. Unless you were talking about something different there. If so, please let me know.
You are correct, but the problem is that security team provides their templates, which I need to fill. So I need to do that. I can't just give access for them. I need to fill the template, and for me, it's very hard because I need to check one by one, and we have around 300 settings, so it's very manual job.
Real quick question: how many of those? So, out of those security questions or the policies, do you guys follow the security baseline? There should be a toggle inside OCPS, Office Cloud Policy Service, when you sign in, where you can hit the button and it will sort the whole list just to the security baseline.
Yeah, we use them, but not all. For example, for VBA, we have a lot of VBA, so we need to enable for all, and your default setting is disabled. So sometimes we use the security baselines, sometimes we use a different configuration, sometimes we are just configuring not the security related features.
Got it.
So yeah, we have a lot of.
If you want to email me, I think Chris Hopkins is the product manager that owns the Office Cloud Policy Service, and he'd love to get some feedback from me on that. I know he's been working on some scenarios for importing policy as well as like change man. Like he's got a bunch of ideas on the backlog that he's looking at going through. So if I'll drop my email address in here, and then just email me, and we'll get you in touch with him.
I want to jump on this real quick before I let Bob off the chain for autopilot, autopatch. I mean, regarding feedback, when you log into the Apps Admin Center, on each page, basically on the top right, you have a feedback button. If you navigate to the feature that you want to provide feedback with, how this works in the backend, we get this information like someone was on the page of OCPS, clicked on the feedback button, and this is what this person entered into the box. Like, I'm missing a feature to export all my policies to CSV. So it's not going all into one big pool, but depending on the site or page you entered the feedback, it will actually go to the owner of this feature, because different features in the Apps Admin Center, there are different teams behind. So if you want to provide feedback with OCPS, I want to make sure that it directly lands with the guys building this and are responsible for designing this. Go into the Apps Admin Center, go onto the OCPS page, hit the feedback button, enter what you're missing, what you like, what you don't like. If you want to also give us the capability to send you an email back and then send it. This way, the appropriate teams get the best, and it's an important feedback channel. So they hear it from you, like, I'm missing this feature, and then can adjust their priorities. But Bob, you wanted to talk about autopatch.
Yeah, I usually set a timer to see how long it takes before someone asks an autopatch question. So, yeah. So AJ, in terms of autopatch or anybody else that's talking about autopatch, a little context. This is, if you're familiar with Microsoft Managed Desktop, or our MMD team, separate outside of Office org, they're their own entity, but they would onboard customers and essentially take over a lot of the management of devices for customers. They've been patching the devices for some time, and they have a solution. They took that solution and brought it out and built autopatch so the broader audience of customers can leverage it. So zeroing in on just the Office component, because autopatch right now is very just Windows specific. There's a couple of other products in their documentation, but essentially, full control is more Windows focused. Office in general, it's a very lightweight management. Basically, they're just calling back to Intune, setting up the configuration profiles to apply the update policies, which are, your update channel, your deadline value, and update against the CDN, essentially. I think they actually do rings now as well, so they have an automatic delay between like the 3 rings that autopatch supports, or 4 rings. So today, if you're using autopatch and you want to do Office update, that's what's going to happen. It's just going to lay those policies down for you, so you don't have to do as much work. Now, how does that work with servicing profiles? Well, servicing profiles takes precedence. So if you have servicing profiles and autopatch is turned on, well, servicing profiles is always going to win. So those policies that autopatch puts down are going to be irrelevant as long as the device is managed by servicing profiles. And then in the longer term, or hopefully shorter term, we are working directly with the autopatch team to actually replace their model for Office servicing and just give them a callback to servicing profiles. So in the future, devices managed by autopatch will just actually be using the servicing profiles on the backside for M365 apps. So hopefully that answers your questions. If not, throw that in the chat. In terms of the last question you had there, any ETA on semi-annual channel support for autopatch? So they hard code the policies, and last I talked to the PMs, there's no plans for them to give customers the ability to manipulate those policies, meaning it's going to be monthly enterprise channel now, and it will forever be monthly enterprise channel until the Office team says this is the better channel for enterprise customers. So while we may have a servicing profile eventually for current channel and semi-annual, I think autopatch, as far as for the foreseeable future, will be monthly enterprise only. Awesome. Yeah, all right. Any other questions, you guys? Do we have any more material to go through? Was that we got through the deck?
We have maybe one more slide in the slide deck regarding how to leverage servicing profile, how to start using servicing profile. But I want to make sure that we are also covering everything else like deployment, activation, accessibility, whatever questions are coming from the audience. So I will look at the chat for a few, one more minute, and then I will pop up the slide deck.
And feel free to come off mute too if you have a quick question. This is time for you guys to get all your questions answered. So I see one on shared devices there. So I assume, so there's a couple things with shared devices. It's, with having the shared computer activation set, so it's still a user-based license or user-based token activation rather, or session activation. As far as the actual activation piece, there's been some discussion on working on getting inventory set up to where it doesn't take in like non-persistent VDI images, so that when you look at your inventory, if you see these VDI images that are in there that are non-persistent and not really part of the fleet per se. So we're working on that as well, but I don't have an ETA on that. That's on the backlog. If that's kind of how your question was, if you're looking at how the servicing profile handles shared devices, it updates the same way as though it was not shared. The shared part is just more for the licensing side of the house or the user-based side of the house, but there can only be one version of Office on the device itself, so it will go through the same process if it's a physical device that just happens to have shared.
There's one hands up in the audience.
Yeah, I have a question with regards to the monthly enterprise rollout thingy. So one of my colleagues actually was testing the servicing idea from the Office admin panel, and apparently he went on a vacation, not telling the rest of the parties involved. And when the person came back to only know that it's the opt-out date was actually passed, and that means every device that was in that basically about 3,000 something devices went on to monthly channel. Now so right now we have it paused, the rollout. It's still there, right? And we don't have an option to basically roll back from the panel, as you know, right? We also have a support ticket with Microsoft. The engineer is saying all kind of things. I'm not confident that he understands what he's trying to say. We kind of stuck with this monthly enterprise channel out of 11,000 something devices. We have 3,600 or so are actually on monthly enterprise channel. Now, what is the best way for us to basically tackle them, other than the fact that going and uninstalling them and reinstalling them with a new channel after the monthly channel change on the registry or with an XML?
What's your overall goal? Do you want to stay on monthly enterprise channel, or you have a need to go back?
No, for now we have a mandate to basically, at least for the coming year, we need to stay with semi-annual. That is a goal right now. So the management is not really happy with what just happened, and it's basically pushing all the cloud settings also on the way, because he had by mistake pushed that rollout, and every device now sitting with cloud policies and nonsenses. So kind of.
If you have a case open, if you want to shoot the case number, like we can reach out to the case engineer. We have like a rollback. So how to offboard from servicing profiles, and then methods if you can use, if you're using config manager, what methods to go through. It's a little lengthy to go through I think, on this call. But yeah, we have steps if you need to do a channel change backwards.
How do I, should I reach you out over the guys over the Discord channel, or how do we?
Yeah, that's fine. We're all, I think all 4 of us are on there, 5 of us.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So I'll reach you guys over this one, and I'll share you the ticket number and see if we can, because I have a feeling the person who's trying to help me isn't, he's all over the place. So I think that's why. And I was waiting for this call for the last few weeks, just trying to see when this call is going to be, so that I can ask you guys. Although I did submit I know the feedback thingy is also, you guys look at from the last time you guys told us that it's always taken care of. Somebody does read all those feedbacks, but I know you guys get overwhelming number of them, so no complaints. But yeah, just wanted to throw it out there. So we'll reach you guys out on over the Discord, and then see if we can kind of take care of it. Appreciate it. Okay.
Now, one thing I wanted to follow up really quick on with that, I'm going to throw a link in the chat here to the Forrester study. So, like, as you guys look at like rolling back, and we'll navigate through that on helping you through it. But there's a Forrester study that was done that I'll get the links to here, and there's really overwhelming impact from a bunch of different customers and groups and on benefits that you could kick up to your leadership, just to have them review the Forrester study, check it out, and kind of review all the benefits of it, and that might help them pivot at least some of those devices.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did try to convince the management, but unfortunately, we wanted to basically leverage the Microsoft Connected Cache while people are on premise, and to have kind of the updates and everything go through there. But MCC, SCCM is having some trouble, and there's a ticket, and even the engineering team is on it, and they're actually releasing a patch from what we have actually raised the ticket against. So we wanted to make sure that the MCC is up and ready, so that even if there's monthly updates, we wanted to actually take care of via MCC, so that not all the devices are connecting to the internet directly for updates. And with the DO and MCC, we could take care of it, but unfortunately, the MCC isn't working either. So my hands kind of got tied over there. Couldn't convince them any further. I really wanted to get that thing going with MCC in place, so that we could have just gone ahead and changed all of them to MCC. The monthly enterprise channel would have been easy and better for everyone, because I did read through some of the articles and how you guys made the decision to basically transfer all of the while to from semi-channel to monthly as a preferred option, or a recommended one. But yeah, this is where we are.
So and we can talk through all of that too, like when you reach out, because might be, that might be something we can address relatively quickly too. If you got a case open, we probably have answers to this question. Yeah,
no, appreciate that. We'll talk more on the side then. Yeah,
I want to really quickly cover on a high level what the steps would like. So for a broad audience. So yes, we can offboard for servicing profiles. So one of the tricks is to scope the servicing profile to an empty Azure AD group, or an Azure AD group with just one device in. Then all other devices are treated out of scope, and all other click-to-run installations will get the signal. Servicing profile is no longer in charge of telling you what you should do. So please go back to whoever your master was before, basically. So use an Azure AD group with one device, then you can unpause the servicing profile, and it will start sending the commands to devices. I'm no longer in charge of you. And then I heard your config manager environment. So usually the best from a user perspective experience is you could use the group policies to specify this machine should be on semi-annual. And then there's a command line, which we can share through email, to trigger an update from the Office CDN. And if the backend is the Office CDN, devices can switch channels no matter from which channel to which channel. So a device could switch from a monthly enterprise channel installation to a semi-annual installation, for the user, it appears it's the same user experience as an update. It will download the required bits and bytes directly from Office CDN and flip the channel. So kind of a one-time activity, and then the devices are back on semi-annual, and you can use Config Manager to then every month, just regular cadence, deploy your Office updates. So these would be kind of the general steps. Make sure that servicing profiles giving away or giving up the control over the M365 updates, then leverage the Office CDN backend to have a smooth channel transition, and then you're back in the swing with Config Manager. John has his hand up as well.
Hello, I just wanted to follow up on a question. I forgot who answered, but I was curious about shared device licensing. And so, yeah, I understand when I sign the subscription to a device on the cloud side, it's going to just let anyone use the app, no questions asked. What I really am interested in knowing is, because unfortunately I don't have much visibility into the cloud side. So I apologize if this question is too basic, but how can I automate the assignment of that subscription to devices as they appear on the cloud? So example, if I image a PC with Config Manager, or if I enroll with Autopilot into Intune, etc., like how do I ensure that the delay between like the PC being born and being ready for that license, is there like a refreshing group I could do on the cloud side or something like that?
This is Matt. I'd like to kind of chat a little bit deeper. I know we're going to be running over here in a second, but as far as the activation is concerned, if you can hit me up on Discord, we can chat through it. But ideally, anybody I talk them out of shared computer activation, just because it's not as resilient as the subscription model. We've made huge improvements in the subscription model lately to automatically roll over. There's more, there's an out-of-box grace. So if it can't activate on its own, you have a 5-day out-of-box grace. With shared computer activation, if that box can't hit the internet, it immediately goes into reduced functionality mode. So there's a bunch of gotchas for SCA. And really, you only want to use it if you're specifically using it in VDI, where it's like hard-coded and it won't install without shared turned on.
Understood.
But
I mean,
yeah,
we happen to have some really oddball scenarios that I'm trying to puzzle out, which don't, like, let's say, involve users on legacy AD or in really bad stuff like that, and I'm trying to work that out. I do have an easier question. So what's the benefit of roaming the token if you're doing shared device activation?
Yeah, so I threw that in the chat as well. Basically, we created SCL cache override so that you could roam that token. A lot of customers were using like all sorts of different profile roaming tools, and it was easy. A lot of customers didn't like that it was in local app data. They just said, "Why is it in local app data? I want it to be in somewhere else." And that's what we allowed them to. We dropped that key so that it would force it to another folder. My caution there is, anytime you add a hop that could potentially break something. So like, just because you use SGL cache override, now Office has to redirect from the local folder, that location where it's basically defaulted to, and now it's going to have to try to hit a location that you put it, and if it can't hit that, it can fall apart. But hit me up on there. We have like 11, maybe 10 different activation options now for Office. So there's a ton. So yeah, we can jump on a side chat in Discord and WinAdmins and hang out and talk a little bit.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Cool.
Okay.
Are we close?
Yeah, I know we're a little bit over time. Appreciate you guys all hanging out, and I know we had to start a little late. So, but yeah, any other questions or anything else people want to cover? Okay. But yeah, like Mark put it in the chat as well, and what Matt's been saying is we're on the Discord channel as well, hanging out there. So if you didn't get your question answered today, or you have follow-up questions, things like that, please hit us up there. We're happy to meet with you and talk with you there. Also, like we mentioned before, we're on YouTube, we're on Reddit, we're all over the place. So we're trying to be everywhere you guys are. But this group specifically is obviously all in the AMA or in the Discord channel rather. So feel free to hit us up there. Unless there's anything else, I think we're good to call it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.